Hi, friends. Hello from me and my cat, who is currently rolling around on a bag, as one does. I guess it would not be a live stream or anything with me if there was not a cat making inappropriate noises. So, hello, everyone. On this live stream, I'm going to be talking about my feminine energy journey because I'm currently launching properly my feminine energy without bullshit course, which I did a soft launch for back, I think, in June. And those of you guys who've been around my world for a little while will know that my journey with all of this feminine energy stuff has been a journey. Okay. And so those of you guys who know my history with gender will know that I identified as non-binary for 20 years or so, if not a little bit longer. And over time, I decided to embrace the whole feminine energy thing. Oh, hello, live person. I didn't really announce this, so I'm really excited to see someone here. So feel free to say hello in the chat. I'm just going to be talking, but this is also Hangout. Feel free to ask questions, vibe out if you want to ask me anything. That's what I'm here for. So anyway, those of y'all who know me will know that I grew up as a tomboy. I grew up with everyone thinking I was a boy. I grew up looking very androgynous and all of that. And in terms of spirituality, as a kid, I really couldn't connect to any feminine energy divinities. I would try to connect with Aphrodite, Venus, anything feminine, and I just couldn't. I had this massive block there for a really, really long time. And so, for the first many years of my spiritual journey, my spiritual practice, I could only really touch through with masculine energy divinities. So the Greek gods I worked with a lot when I was younger, and any masculine energy spirits I had a much easier time connecting with because I was so much in my masculine energy, despite my body, despite gender, despite whatever. And so I don't want to get too into the weeds about this and more just kind of give a bit of an overview. But over time, I kind of realized that I was in that masculine energy out of fear, often a fear of being abandoned. I was there due to a need to experience safety. And so when I wasn't taken care of, when there was no one to take care of me emotionally, etc., this happens to a lot of women, I think, especially, we kind of lean into our masculine energy. And so I've done a lot of podcast episodes about what is masculine energy, what is feminine energy. So I don't really want to completely rehash all of that. I don't want to completely rehash all of that here. You guys might get a little bit bored as you're like, I already know this. But I would say feminine energy is a little bit more receptive. It's a little bit more soft. It's a little bit more leaned back. It's spontaneous. It's embodied. It's more about waiting and observing. And I would say a masculine energy is a lot more go, 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 do the things, make the plans, like very intense. And so I gave this example to someone I was working with earlier today, whereas if you look at the tarot, I would say the Empress is a great embodiment of that feminine energy archetype. And then the perfect archetype for masculine energy would be in that Emperor tarot card, right? Where everything is kind of rigid, everything is very stable. The dude looks kind of stern, very kind of aggressive, but not in a bad way, like very kind of protective type of energy. You feel like you're going to be safe with that dude. Whereas feminine energy is a little bit more soft, a little bit more chill. Like there's almost no hard lines in that feminine energy tarot card. And actually, I'll just grab that off the side of the screen to show you guys, so you know what I'm talking about. Oh, it was just chilling. Okay, so if we can compare them. That's right at the top of my deck because I was explaining this to someone earlier. So here we see two very different energy archetypes. Very, very different. Look at how different their thrones are. Look at the difference of their stance. Look at how they are handling their scepter. Look at their outfits. Look at the textures. Just look at the shapes. Look at all of it. It's just very different. We all have both these things within us. We each have feminine energy. We each have masculine energy. Doesn't matter which body you've got. Doesn't matter which gender you are, etc. But I noticed that as I was growing up, and also due to, I would say, sexual trauma, due to my femininity from a female family member, I'll just leave it at that. I kind of rejected, and I only realized this was why. And it says I only realized this quite recently, like where that disconnect was and why I was so rejecting of a lot of things to do with femininity and feminine energy for most of my life. I played both hockey and did ballet. And so that I had this balance of feminine and masculine energy. I ended up quitting ballet and quitting hockey eventually. But it didn't feel like the feminine was a safe space for me. It was always a place where I felt unsafe. I felt like emotional violence. I felt icky. Like it didn't feel like a space that I wanted to explore. It felt like a space that I wanted to just get rid of and just push to the side, and it didn't feel good to me. And I didn't really realize that that was the reason until comparatively recently, that was part of why that earlier kind of sexualized comments that I would be getting about my body, about my femininity from a female family member. Like, it's a very traumatic, very fucked up thing. And it fucked me up considerably. And I think that is a lot of why I identified as non-binary for so long, right? A lot of why I was rejecting femininity for so long, and also growing up with trauma. I think a lot of us are not in a space where it feels safe to lean into this feminine energy vibe, right? Because if we're not feeling safe, if we don't feel like our caretakers are taking care of us adequately, if we don't feel like we can lean back and trust others to take care of us, if we don't feel safe in our feminine bodies, that we will be safe just to exist, it can be really easy to bury this feminine energy part of ourselves and then lean into the masculine energy part. Because the masculine energy part is go-getter, doing the stuff. In my other courses, so I do have a bunch of courses now. In my Feminine Energy Without Bullshit course, which is launching right now, obviously I'm speaking about this in kind of a gendered energy type of term. But in my older courses, I do talk about this type of energy in a non-gendered way. So it's absolutely possible to think about and conceive of these energies in non-gendered ways. Personally, I do find the gendering useful right now in my practice, which is why I'm beginning to teach it, because I do see some interesting gender dynamics in life out there and also in myself. It seems like a thing that's important to talk about, name, understand, work with, right? That's kind of where I'm coming from. But in my older courses, Tarot and Magic Without Bullshit, I talk about energy in a way which is completely non-gendered, right? We're talking about assertive energy versus receptive energy. We're talking about being energy versus doing energy. And we can still work with and understand these different ways of speaking about energy. We can still incorporate that into how we're seeing it in a kind of gendered way, right? So whether the gender thing resonates with you, whether it doesn't really matter. I think either way, thinking about energy in these ways, active, receptive, doing, being, it's really, really useful to at least be aware of this when it comes to magic. And we don't have to gender it when it comes to magic. We don't have to gender it at all. But for myself, I have found it really, really useful and interesting to kind of think about it in these ways and begin to reclaim what that feminine essence, feminine energy might actually look like. Since growing up, I was never able to lean into that. It was never safe enough to. And so now, as an adult, as a part of my healing journey, both with my own gender and then just in general, healing trauma, having a happier life, all of these lovely things, which is so great. And on my information page for the Feminine Energy Without Bullshit course, I actually put, like, what did my aura look like in 2018, back when I barely even knew what feminine energy was. If you guys look at the aura pictures, it's on the website. Literally, my aura from 2018 is like fucking almost black. It's like dark with like a little red like rainbow. And it's just so dreary and sad. And then you look at my aura from now and it fills up the entire fucking photo of bright color, which I really fucking love that. And it's been really cool to kind of reflect back and see that difference. Even obviously, I can feel it in my own life. I'm a lot happier. There's no drama. I feel so much self-worth. What else can I say? My connections are so much better. My dating life is better. My friendships are better. My work is better. My relationship to myself is better. My relationship to my past is better. My relationship to everything is just better. And I have like no drama anywhere and everything is just great. And honestly, I do credit a lot of that transformation to my diving into feminine energy, which I started to do back in 2017, 2018. And so what I noticed was that I was very in my masculine energy around everything. And so with work, I don't mind being in my masculine energy. I think that can be very necessary. It's like it's a lot of output, right? With the type of work that I do, there's a lot of like doing, sharing, emailing, podcasting, even doing this right now. This is very much like I'm putting things out there. There is a doing energy to this. Oh, hi, Hallie. No, I don't actually. I have no book recommendations because I didn't learn it from a book. I didn't learn any of this from a book. I'll probably end up writing one. But the whole reason that I'm starting to talk about this is that I'm teaching a course on feminine energy. So that would be my recommendation. I'll probably write a book on it like one day. But right now, what's really important to me is to teach it in a video type of course context. Because what I sometimes find with books is sometimes people won't actually like do the thing. They will read it and then they'll put it back on the shelf and they'll forget about it. And the other thing is that reading is intellectual. Reading is our brain. Reading is very disembodied a lot of the time. And I love reading. Like I've got like stacks of books everywhere. As you guys can see, like my bookshelves are like my entire apartment is like books on books on books. So like I totally am with you. I'm a book person, but I feel like with feminine energy, it's not good to be in our head with it because it's so embodied, right? And it's really the embodiment and the presence. In my book, Which Body I Call Magic, being all about a reinvigorated presence. And I would say feminine energy is a very similar type of thing, right? There is an even deeper reinvigorated presence when we lean into feminine energy. And I do feel like it's very connected, right? Because as I talk about in my book, Which Body, a lot of magic, witchcraft stuff, and expanding our ability to be mediums and our psychic skills and to pick up the vibes. A lot of that is about learning to receive, right? Receiving, noticing the energy that's around us, feeling the sensations in our body that's going to let us know, oh, the spirit is here, or like, oh, there's a bad vibe over there. I should not walk that way, or some intuition about this or that, right? So there is an inherent receiving to all of this magical spiritual stuff, right? And so that is a big reason why I've decided to launch a course on this as opposed to writing a book on it. Because the course, and I'm only doing this once actually in terms of the group coaching that's coming along with the course, because I want people to actually put the things into practice and be present with me in their physical body and go out and do the stuff and then come back and report to me. So there's some actual personal accountability and some like actual back and forth. Because I do find, like, especially with this, right? People read a book, then they'll forget about it. And then their life will not change at all. And I didn't learn any of this from a book. I learned about it by doing it. I learned about it by making myself a little bit uncomfortable, challenging some of my beliefs about who am I, who are other people, what is my story, right? And so, Hallie, actually, I'm just going to put, hopefully, I'm saying your name right. I'm just going to put the course URL in the chat. It should be in the description of this video, but I've had like a really wonky day. So, okay, so hopefully that link works. Sorry, like I'm like late doing this today because I was just late doing everything today. There's traffic, and anyway, not enough about that. But I think feminine energy, right? There's something about it. We have to embody it, right? Like we can't just intellectualize it because then we're in this mode of doing. What I really, really love about feminine energy and why I feel like it's so unique and so awesome, and why especially women all need this in their lives, is it's this internal alchemy, right? So as witches, I'm sure if y'all are here, like most of you guys are probably interested in witchcraft or magic or something like that, at least in some kind of capacity. With magic, it's all about transforming a lot of the external circumstances, right? We want the job, we want the nice dating life, we want the glamour magic, we want the money, we want this, we want that. And yeah, maybe we're doing some magic on our own selves for self-love, self-healing, healing trauma, whatever it is that we're doing with our own magical practice, healing the ancestral trauma. But what I really love about feminine energy and diving into it, it's like the magic is in the complete shift of who we are. And the way that our energy, this is going to sound so hippie, and I'm sorry, but like the way that our energy vibrates, the way that our energy moves, and our whole methodology of existing in the world. And so it comes to a point where we don't need to do as much magic, so to speak. And that's what I've noticed for myself, is that I'm doing so much of this feminine energy stuff. It's at first it starts with a doing, but then it becomes a being. And then your whole life just changes because your mindset changes, your energy changes, your relationship to other people changes. And then you need to do kind of less magic. Like you feel called to do less magic because you don't need to. Because instead of doing magic, like I teach, let's say in my Magic Without Bullshit course, which I still love and think is awesome, has been very life-changing for a lot of people, that is still a very doing kind of masculine energy form of magic. Whereas the feminine energy stuff, like I guess we can call it magic, but we don't necessarily have to. It's more of the magic of the self, the magic of who we are being. And so instead of doing this, doing that, doing that, doing that, what I'm noticing in my own practice, and again, this is like a spicy take maybe, but I'm noticing that instead of doing magic for this or doing magic for that, I'm just setting the intention of I want to summon this into my life, or I want to summon this, or I'm in the mood for this, I'm in the mood for that, and things just kind of attract. And it's a completely different mechanism than how a lot of the typical Western magic and witchcraft is thought to work. It's like that magic is more like we're going to put the energy out there and it's going to come back to us and we're going to do the thing. Whereas what I'm talking about is a bit more of like I'm a lighthouse giving the vibe. And then there's like attracting the things. And so it's been very, very interesting to me to see this from a like magical witchcraft perspective, because it does throw on its head a lot of the assumptions about how energy works that are in the Western witchcraft occult community. Obviously, I still believe all of that. I think 100% all of that shit still works. I still do magic like that still as well. I still teach it. I still believe it. I still love it. Will always. And it's so interesting to be able to supplement that with this like complete alchemical shift in my own self. You know, because I see a lot of the way that some people are working with magic as a bit of a band-aid fix to things. And I think that can be fine. Like I've done a lot of magic like that too in my time, probably will still. But when we're doing constant magic, let's say to get over the ex, to get over the family trauma, to, I don't know, this or that, like fill in the blanks, all these different things. When we shift our being, and in my scope of practice, I'm calling this feminine energy. When we are, as women especially, when we're able to shift our being into this way of thinking, this way of being, this way of vibrating, this way of existing, everything changes. We give less of a fuck. That sounds really bad, but I notice that I take everything so much less personally. I have so much more self-worth. I trust that if something is for me, it will come to me. I don't feel like I need to chase anyone or anything, especially when it comes to dating. Like, I definitely was one of those people that would be like texting people who were ignoring me or whatever, like way back in the day. And I haven't really had like any heartbreak since I've been doing this feminine energy thing because I'm doing that lighthouse attraction thing. And so if people are not stepping up or they're not treating me in a good way, then they become unappealing. The attraction dies for me. And it never used to be that way. Like back when I was in my masculine energy all the time, I was always attracted to like kind of, I don't know how to phrase it, people who were a bit hot and cold, people who would be like really amazing and then like disappear. And I was just so like addicted to that thing. And there's like biological reasons for that. We can get into that, the intermittent reinforcement thing. There's studies on this, blah, blah, blah. But I've noticed that as I've leaned into the feminine energy piece, it's completely shifted my vibration and my mind to the point where if people are hot and cold with me, I just become disinterested. Just don't care. Because the feminine energy is all about being that lighthouse. Hello. I talked with one client that I'm working with one-on-one about thinking about feminine energy as like a rose garden with a fence around it. So the rose garden can be very beautiful and very fragrant and very like lovely and inviting. But people are attracted to the rose garden, but not everyone gets to go inside the rose garden. The rose garden is protected by the fence. Those are our boundaries. And so I feel like back in the day when I was in my masculine energy, I was not a rose garden. I was like the dandelions on the sidewalk, right? And I love dandelions still. But on those dandelion sidewalks, people are trampling on them and not appreciating them. And I really love dandelions. There's no shit talk on dandelions. I think like I eat dandelion greens all the time. Dandelions are really magical, witchy plant, I think, because it has that sun energy and then the kind of like chthonic dark energy as well with the roots. So it's a really interesting plant magically. But that really wasn't working for me in my daily life, right? And so it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people get into feminine energy because they want to find out how to attract men specifically. But I feel like the real work with the feminine energy is it's so much about transforming ourselves. And anyone who is still watching live, I'd be really curious to know what your relationship to your feminine energy is. What are your struggles with it? How do you even relate to the concept right now? Like, as far as you're concerned, what even is that? Like, I'd be really curious to know because I know what this journey has been like for me. And it has been a very transformative journey, honestly, in ways that I really did not expect. And it's completely thrown a lot of things that I thought that I knew on their head. And my whole everything has changed. And it's been fucking awesome. I'll say that. And you can really see it on the website that I linked in what does my aura look like? Like it was very dark and miserable. I had like a very low life force energy. You know, even if people around me wouldn't have necessarily thought that. But you can see it in the photo then versus now is a completely different vibe. And yeah, it's been really, really interesting. And so I find myself doing a lot less witchcraft and magic now in an explicit, like, I want this type of way because I find myself attracting more things and also just accepting that not everything is for me, right? I think before I was in a kind of like scarcity mindset, grab, 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 chase, chase, chase. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I'm just going to allow things to flow and magnetize. Let's see. Hallie says, your struggle with femininity is more about physical beauty because you were teased in your youth, typically. Oh no, sibling rivalry, but it left you feeling like trash. Oh my God. I'm like sending you like the biggest hug through the screen right now. So I hope you can feel that. That sounds like a really horrible thing to go through. You feel much better about yourself, but now it's filtering through what social media and dating advice says about. That's actually so interesting. So can I ask you, Hallie, and hopefully I'm saying that right. If I'm not, please correct me. what is it that you are on the fence about, or what you hear from, let's say, advice, dating advice or social media, what resonates with you and what doesn't? 'Cause everyone who's watching this for the replay will know that with my magic stuff and my tarot stuff, I'm really big on helping people find their own way of connecting with things, right? So I don't need to create like magic Sabrina clones. I don't need to create tarot clones of people who read exactly like me either. And I think the same thing with feminine energy too, right? It's like everyone is going to be relating to it in a different way. And I think part of what I want to be doing with this course and in general, whenever I'm talking about this, is really creating space for people to explore and figure out what the hell their own personal relationship is to feminine energy anyway. And what do you want it to be? Because I really do believe we all have both a feminine energy component to it. We all have a masculine energy component to it. Oftentimes, when we're in our masculine energy, it's when we feel like our survival is threatened, when we have to hustle to pay the bills, when we are in a physical danger area, when we're in a trauma type of thing, like that is when our masculine energy is going to protect us, right? Like all of this. And let's see, Hallie's saying, they say you have to be a certain size and have certain assets to be womanly or feminine. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I definitely don't think that's true. And one example we can even think about with this is, and this might be a bit of a controversial example, but if you think about some very flamboyant gay men, like some of them are very in their feminine energy. I don't even just mean like the swishiness. I mean like just with how they are, how they present themselves, how I don't even mean like what they're wearing necessarily, right? I don't even necessarily mean their haircut. I mean more their how they occupy space, the way their energy shows up. And I think anyone looking at some particular gay men would be like, "Oh, that's a very feminine energy man." Right? Their essence, it shows up in a different way. And how I like to think of feminine energy is like there's a self-assuredness to it. There's a softness to it. There's an embodiment to it. And there's also an honoring of the body. And there's also, I would say this is crucial, a self-trust, a trust in the self and a trust in the universe as well. I know that probably sounds a bit cheesy. And so I feel like it has really nothing to do with body size or whether someone has particular curves in particular places. Like personally, I actually did go through surgery to get curves in particular places, but someone can have all the curves until the cows come home or whatever the phrase is and still be in a very masculine energy space. They can be wearing the most feminine energy looking dress. Like the dress itself can look very feminine, but and they can be wearing lipstick or whatever, but the way their energy is could still be in the masculine energy. So for me, it's so much less about what body are we in. What does our body look like? What is our body shape? What's our body size? What is our hair doing? What makeup? It's a lot more about what is our energy doing? How is our energy vibrating? Yeah, I think it is, Hallie, so interesting. You're saying you see all types of women having the men and their lives that they want, so you think it's more of a mental thing. It's interesting. I think you're right. I think there's a mental aspect of it, and I think there's also an energetic, embodied aspect of it, right? Because like what I've noticed thinking back on my journey was there was back at the beginning of it, it was a mental game that I had to play with myself where I would have to, like, if I would get the urge to text someone, if I would have the urge to ask someone for their number, I would like sit on my hands and be like, nope, 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 can't do that. Need to retrain my brain to not do that and to trust, right? Because oftentimes when we chase, it's because we don't trust that other people will chase us. And so what I kind of learned on my journey is that feminine energy in that dating context that you're mentioning is just trusting that we are worthy of being chased in that way. So I had to like trust that if someone wants to get a hold of me, if someone wants to ask me out, they're going to do it. If someone wants to ask for my number, they're going to do it. And if they don't care enough, if they're not interested enough to ask, then they're probably not that interested anyway. Or they're the type of person who I would probably have to be in my masculine energy around to constantly keep that going. And so that's the other interesting thing that's inspired me to teach all this stuff and to talk about it and to think about it. And my feminine energy course is not a dating course, but there is stuff in there that I think we can apply to dating. And so one of the dynamics that I've seen a lot with women who are dating men or who are married to men is they take on the role of the planner, the doer, the nagger, the one who is controlling everything, and they resent that. I've seen a lot of women be in that situation and just resent the hell out of their situation. Like they just want the guy to step up and do something. But what's really interesting is that dynamic is kind of established from early dating. It's established from like day one, and if the woman is the planner in the early dating, she's probably going to be the planner like forever unless she decides to step back, sit on her hands, and see what happens, see where the chips may fall. And I think a lot of the time, women in particular are afraid to do that because oftentimes we don't necessarily like where the chips may fall. Like in this situation, it's like the chips may fall in such a way where you lose that man, that partner. Sometimes that's how it goes. It's a thing, right? And that can be a really tough thing to come to terms with and just accept and be faced with, right? Because like if we're in love with this person, if we really want them to be more giving, more caring, more thoughtful, more like that situational awareness. Like people talk about this a lot lately. This was a really big topic in the past like 10 years. What is it? Like emotional labor, the emotional load of a household. A lot of women take that on. I would say a lot of women take it on because they're afraid that the men are not going to step up and do it. But there's only one way to find out, which is to stop doing it if you're already in that cycle. And so that involves stepping out of the masculine energy into the feminine energy and seeing where the chips may fall. And there's always a risk in that. There's always like the Fool tarot card. If anyone here is familiar with the tarot, that's kind of what that puts me in mind of. Also the Hanged Man tarot card, I would say. Giving up the need to control everything. Being willing to see people for who and what they are and situations for who and what they are. When we're always in our masculine energy and we've always got our hands in every pie, we actually don't have the ability to step back and see what all everyone and everything is. And so that's often like ends up with us in situations where we might not be benefiting, or it's people who could be taking advantage of that about us, or we just end up resentful. And I see that with a lot of women who end up resenting other people in their life, whether it's friends or family or a partner, where they're just overgiving and also overly understanding and making themselves responsible for everyone else. And that's always a very masculine energy thing. Whereas the feminine energy is a lot more about leaning back and trusting that everything will be taken care of and it doesn't have to be in a particular way. And if so-and-so drops the ball, well, then now you know that. And you can decide what you want to do about that. You can decide to step away from that relationship. You can decide to set a boundary. You can decide to set an ultimatum. You can decide to break up. That's the thing. And one of my biggest behavioral changes with the feminine energy piece when it comes to dating is I don't really argue with anyone anymore. I don't persuade anyone of anything. I don't explain anything, especially in early dating. I'm just like, this is what I want. This is what I do. Like one of my examples, I had a podcast episode about this last week sometime. Like I don't do drink dates. I just don't. Like you can hear about that in the podcast episode of why. But I don't explain to people why. I just say it would feel so good to enjoy dinner and a drink with you. I don't say why. And what's the real reason? The real reason is I feel like drinks is kind of cheap. I also feel like drinks is going to get the girl drunk, lower her inhibitions. It doesn't nourish you. It's just about an altered state where a lot of women might make bad decisions, ignore their own boundaries. It gets you a bit You know, you don't actually get to see who the person is. You see the drunk version. It's easy to just have more and more drinks and kind of just get into a spiral, even if you don't mean to, even if you don't have a problem with drinking. It's a very common thing. It doesn't feel good to me. It's a bit fast paced. Like, I also am a lightweight. You know, I would rather enjoy, I'm also a big foodie. I love eating. Like, I love food. I love the ambiance. I love the slow pace of a meal. Also, if it's easier to get to know someone, you're slowing down the drinking. It's just, there's all these reasons. That is all for me to know. That's not for anyone else to really know. And so whenever I'm saying, oh, I would love to get dinner, I don't explain any of that. And if that doesn't work for people, that's fine. We don't have to meet. It's simple. And so I don't explain it, because the only thing that really should matter is that feels good to me. That's what makes me feel good in my body. That's what makes me feel nourished. That's what makes me feel good, safe. You know, that's what makes me feel cherished. That's what makes me feel like someone is interested in actually getting to know me as a person rather than just getting in my pants, right? But I don't have to explain that. And I think back when I was in my masculine energy, I might have explained that to make myself legible. But what's really beautiful about feminine energy is we don't have to explain anything, which is a masculine energy thing to do in that context. We can lean back into self-worth, self-trust, say, this is my comfort, and I'm not going to be compromising on my comfort. I don't need to explain it. You're a stranger. Take it or leave it. That's it. And obviously I don't say it in exactly that way, but I think back when I was in my more masculine energy state, I would have had all these thoughts of like, oh, is he going to think I'm a gold digger? I just want a free meal. Is he going to think I'm taking advantage? Is he going to think I'm expensive? Is he going to think blah, 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 blah. But with this, it's like, I don't really care what anyone is thinking. It either works for them or it doesn't. And we don't need to have a conversation about it. I just know what my own boundaries are. And if 20 guys say no to that, that doesn't faze me, because I've got the self-trust, the self-worth to know this is my own boundaries. This is my own comfort. This is how I vibrate in the world. This is what feels good to me. This is what I would be doing anyway. Like, I don't go out for drinks. I get food no matter when. Why would I make an exception for a stranger? I also say no to coffee dates, as I don't do that even really with friends. Why would I do that with a random stranger? You know? And so I think part of the feminine energy thing with all of this, at least on my journey, has been to give myself space and give myself permission to be who I want to be, to have the boundaries that I've always wanted to have. You know, and Hallie's saying you love that it weeds them out faster. Exactly. Because there's a lot of women who are going to be fine with a coffee or with drinks, you know, and that's fine. I'm not judging those women at all. It's just, that's not really where my boundaries are at. And so the relationship of this boundary to feminine energy is it's all about what feels good in my body, right? Because if I did compromise and go for a coffee or just drinks, I would feel stressed out. I'd be like, oh God, I need to make sure I eat enough before I leave. What am I going to eat? Like, and the transit, is my digestion going to be good on the transit? How long is it going to take? Am I going to eat enough so I don't get drunk? Like, all these thoughts. Like, it's just a lot that I would be taking myself out of a good zone for myself, right? And I think we're all going to have different boundaries with this. And I think that's totally reasonable. But the point of this for me is to honor, what do I want? What do I feel good with? What feels healthy and safe and happy and joyful for me? And again, everyone is going to have a different answer to that question. And that's totally cool. My point of bringing this up is not to say that everyone needs to be like me, but it's more like, what feels good in your body? What feels like what feels like a nice exhale? Like, what feels safe? Right? What connects you further into your body and your sense of worthiness? And so this is the other thing with the feminine energy piece on my journey, which has been to have the confidence and the sense of self-worth to say what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not comfortable with, especially around stuff like this. Because a lot of women, I've noticed, well, and this used to be me before I was doing this work, like, will compromise on their own boundaries in order to please a man or to keep it easier for a man or to not be annoying or to not be whatever. Oh my God. Hello, Hot Candy. Are you from Pal Talk from way back when? It's so nice to see you here. Awesome. Yeah, I miss all of those lives from way back when. Those were super fun. We're just talking about feminine energy. It's so nice to see you here. That's awesome. Have you been catching the tarot weekly situations? It's so sad. I think Tina is gone from Pal Talk now too. It's such a bummer because those were so fun. And oh, good, you're subscribed. Yay. Yeah. I wish that I had thought to do it on YouTube as soon as the Pal Talk thing ended. So I've got a little bit of a lag here, but it is nice to be back. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm just talking about feminine energy stuff. And I just remember accepting so much less than I wanted to accept, because I was in my masculine energy, just to continue on with what I was saying. And yeah, I miss Tina. I know I miss those weekly things on Pal Talk. That was like the highlight of my week. And so now I'm just doing that over here and then doing random spiritual topic talks as well, which is what this is. So we're not doing any tarot today. This is more just feminine energy vibe talk. Yeah, I'm really enjoying YouTube though. It does remind me in some ways of Pal Talk. So it's so nice that you're here as well. Yeah. I'd be curious to know how Pal Talk is going now that everyone's gone. It's so sad. But oh my God, what was I saying about feminine energy stuff? YouTube is good. Yeah, I agree. But I think, okay, so part of the feminine energy stuff that I was just saying, and Hallie, if you're still here, maybe you can remind me what on earth I was just saying. But I think a part of it is giving ourselves permission to want what we want, to claim that for ourselves, to decide that we're worthy of that. And if other people fall off, or in terms of dating, as that's generally what a lot of people are talking about with this, if people fall off, then like that's fine. And we can still, yeah, the dating boundaries. Thank you, Hallie. So I think a lot of women have boundaries, and then as soon as they like somebody, all the boundaries go out the window. And that really doesn't serve us. And I think sometimes women will think that their boundaries or their desires are too unreasonable, or they're too high, or they're too this, or they're too that. And so they compromise and betray their own boundaries and kind of abandon ourselves. That's something I see a lot. And a lot of us have that intuition, right? Like that kind of inner knowing from our body, which is giving us signals about what is the best course of action for us. And a lot of us have been taught over the years to just not listen to it. And Hot Kenny, I'm glad you're still married. That's great. Hopefully you're happily married. I don't remember what all the situation was. That was so long ago. But maybe I'll do a tarot night on here sometime where folks can ask. Maybe that would be fun. We'll see. I'll schedule it. You reminded me. Yeah, I read you a long time ago. I can't remember everything I said. Oftentimes when I do readings, I'll just channel it, and then I'll often forget it until someone reminds me, and then I'll be like, oh yeah, which I feel like is kind of good because I don't want to be carrying around everyone's like stuff all the time in the back of my head. So it really is this like channeling type of experience. But it's interesting though, because I do feel like a lot of women have these desires on what our boundaries are, but then there is a fear around keeping the boundary, or a fear around expressing the desires. Like we have this fear of abandonment, a fear of rejection. And so instead of facing the possibility of being abandoned or rejected by someone else, we actually abandon and reject ourselves first. And it gets us into this horrible spiral. And so this is relevant for dating stuff, absolutely. But I would say it's also relevant for everything. Like how we are in one area is going to ripple everywhere, right? The sense of self-worth, boundaries, that's going to ripple everywhere. Friends, family, work, dating, yes. If you're married there, yes. If you have kids there as well. Everything. It's going to impact everything. And so it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. And I think, I don't know, it just breaks my heart when I see people settling for less than they deserve, less than they believe that they want. less than feels good and compromising on their own boundaries and their own desires. And so that's a big part of, in my mind, like what a lot of this feminine energy is about. It's not just about getting breast implants, so you can absolutely do that. I definitely did like a decade ago, going strong. Yay. But it's not just about that, right? Because even though I got that surgery and I had bigger boobs, like back when I was 23, it's like 10 years ago now, it's kind of crazy. Like I was still in my masculine energy space. So it doesn't really matter. Like how you were talking about the body and the shape and whatever. And it's like it didn't matter. Like I was still in my masculine energy. I was still abandoning myself. I was still thinking that I wasn't worthy enough of being approached. I was still doing the approaching. I was operating in that sense of fear, lack of self confidence, and lack in general. And so, what I love about the feminine energy stuff in general and why I think it's so powerful is it brings the focus back to us, right? And so when we think about that when it comes to, let's say, dating, and again, this is not a dating course. My feminine energy without bullshit is not a dating course. It's a feminine energy course. And, I hear a lot of women asking like, oh, does he like me? Does he like me? And it's like, that's the masculine energy question. The feminine energy question is, do I like him? Do I even care if this guy likes me? Like, what do I think of him? How has he been showing up regularly over the past while? What has he demonstrated about himself to me? Very, very different mindsets, right? Because that second question, the feminine energy way of asking that question, do I even like him? That's coming from a space of groundedness, groundedness in our body, looking at our own body for our sensation. What is our body telling us? What signs and signals are we getting about if this person is a good fit, if this person is safe, if this person is cool? What's going on for us? We know that we're stable. We know that we're worthy of the best. We know how our body feels. Whereas the other question, the masculine energy question, does he like me? That's based on putting the power somewhere else. And it's a very cerebral, anxiety-provoking question. Rather than how does my body feel when I'm with this person? Do I even like this person? Two very different ways of looking at it. And so one of them is based on a fear of not being good enough. And the other is based on a knowingness that we are awesome. And yeah, we can work on ourselves. We can all work on ourselves. No one's perfect, right? But one of them is grounded in self-fulfillment. And the other is waiting for that other person to fill in our gap. That ultimately just needs to be filled in by ourselves before we can really let the other in. Candy, you're saying most of your relationships go good and then it turns bad. I'd be kind of curious to look at your connections from that feminine energy versus masculine energy perspective. And one of the interesting things as well, talking about my own journey with feminine energy, is it's taught me who is not a bad fit so much sooner. And so I end up cutting people in a dating context off a lot sooner than I probably used to do. Because when I wasn't in my feminine energy, I was overly understanding. I was making up with excuses and reasons, and I was being very understanding about a lot of stuff, bad behavior, flakiness, crappiness, whatever. I was making a lot of excuses for people. Oh, I understand, no problem. I was being very cool girl back when I was in my masculine energy. But when we are in our feminine energy, it's easy for things to fall off because we don't have to be filling in the blanks. We just see things for how they are in front of us right now. And we just decide, oh, I don't really care what the excuse is. I don't really care what the reason is. If that doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel like a good fit, if we're not being respected, then why? Why tolerate that? And then the challenge with really stepping into the feminine energy is about having the trust, again, in ourselves and in the universe, the abundance mindset, the trust that someone who does see and understand and love us exactly as we are, again, friendships, love, business, whatever, that is out there. the piece of mutual respect and mutual seeing each other that's out there in all areas of life. And I think when we're in our masculine energy, we're just like grasping. We're like trying to find the nearest thing and to like hold on to it, whether or not it's actually good for us. This is the thing. Is when we're in our feminine energy, we can actually see the reality of what something is and whether or not it's a good fit for us or not. And the other interesting thing, and I was telling this to a client just an hour or so ago on a one-on-one coaching call, when we are in a dating context, when we're in our, actually I guess another context as well, but let's just use a dating example. When we're in our feminine energy as women, we get to amplify and see quicker the reality of who someone is. Specifically in this example, like who a man is, if that's what we're trying to do, if that's who we're trying to get to know. We'll see, like if we've got like a problem, like let's say, I don't know, let's just use a random example. Let's just say I broke my foot. So I didn't break my foot. I'm just gonna like knock on wood here. I did like stub my toe a week or so ago, and I'm still kind of limping, to be honest with you. So actually, let's use this as an example. So let's say I hurt my foot and I'm planning a date, or actually, no, I'm not planning a date. I'm gonna go on a date. Let's just imagine. And let's just say I hurt my foot and the place the person suggests is like too far for me to walk to. So what I could say is, in my feminine energy, I would say something to the effect of, thank you so much for choosing that amazing looking restaurant. I've been feeling so excited to go out with you and enjoy the yummy food. And I was wondering if, actually, no, I would not say that I was wondering. I would say, I hurt my foot the other day, and I think it would be challenging for me to walk this distance. What do you think? That's what I would say. What do you think? And I find when men are in their wounded energy, with this fake example, a wounded energy man might say, that sucks. That sucks. We're still going to go there. Whereas a healthy masculine energy man might say, oh, would you prefer to go to somewhere closer so you don't have to walk as much? Or could I pick you up so you don't have to walk as much? Can I drive you? Or can I order you an Uber or something so that you don't have to drive as much? Right? So one of them is helping us, problem solving. The other one is, saying either that sucks or let's just cancel. Let's just cancel. And sometimes the guys who will say, let's just cancel, they're doing that because in their wounded masculine energy, they're like, oh, she's taking advantage of me. She's doing a bait and switch. She's just wanting a free Uber. She's just wanting to, whatever. Right? And all of that shows, what does that teach us? It shows that they have got a lack mentality, a suspicious mentality. They're looking to put themselves in a victim mindset. They're looking to see what all other people are doing against them, which is like a very weird way to approach a stranger, right? We should ideally be giving the benefit of the doubt, not to the point of our brain falling out of our head, but like, let's just assume that no one's going to be weird, right? Unless we're given a reason to think that. Two very different responses, same situation, right? Whereas if I was in this fake example, if I was in my masculine energy and like limped to the restaurant, limp, making myself uncomfortable, hurting my own body, ignoring my own body signals of pain, I would never have got to find that out. And this is why the feminine energy, leading from our body, leading with what feels good to us, leading with our own sovereignty, speaking up about our discomfort, whatever we need help with, what would make us feel good, what we're craving, speaking up with that is going to give us an opportunity to see what is the reality of the people that we're dealing with. And I would say this is especially true in a dating context, because that's kind of what we're talking about in that example, like with the masculine and feminine energy polarity of kind of like a straight dynamic. But we can also see that, like, I'm sure there's probably some queer or lesbian or gay folks listen to this who can probably relate that to their own dating context as well. So I would say this is a kind of universal thing, regardless of which genders we're talking about. As I mentioned earlier, we all have seen the gay man who is very in touch with his feminine energy. We all know exactly who that is in our life, right? And so let's see. Hot Candy is saying, I'm right. Thank you. Hallie is saying, you have a hard time feeling confident in deciding that someone is wrong for you if nothing crazy happened to make you feel that way. In reality, you don't need a reason to cut a guy off. No, you don't. It's interesting though with that point though, because I think sometimes it's a balance, right? Because I think sometimes we can be like afraid of closeness and like we can have intimacy fears and be coming up with stupidness where there isn't any. Like, we can be coming up with things to criticize where there isn't really anything to criticize. So that could be one thing, intimacy fear. And then other times it could be like nothing is wrong, but we have a gut feeling that it's not a fit. And so I think sometimes the real work with this is to really discern what is an intimacy fear, what is intuition, and what is a lack of spark so far. Right, because sometimes we can confuse a spark with, like, true connection, and I think that sometimes the spark, is not a sign of that. Sometimes a spark is a bad thing. But that's my opinion. And Hallie, you're saying you need to trust yourself more. Exactly. Right, and so actually I talk about that a little bit in my, Magic Without Bullshit course, and I've talked about it a lot, with my one-on-one coaching clients with this of, like, noticing what is that difference between a paranoia, like a fear, and what is the difference between that and intuition? Because sometimes when we have a fear, we can cut ourselves off from our blessings, and we can cut ourselves off from a good experience. And so it can be really good to learn that discernment of like, okay, this is an intimacy fear. This is just me being paranoid. This is me being fearful of something good because the good things are uncomfortable or like unfamiliar. And then this is like a real intuition. And so that's going to feel really different for everyone. And so I've done a lot of work with people, mostly on a one on one basis or in a group coaching setting, to really find out like what is that difference for you to help you discern like which is which so that you can make those informed choices. Because I do think that inner voice, that inner trust is huge. And I think especially a lot of women are taught to ignore that. Like, I don't want to be dramatic, but one very horrible example of what happened. And again, I'm not blaming the women for this, but I do think that we see the case of like Ted Bundy, horrible serial killer from way back. And he would ask women to help him carry groceries to his car. And I'm sure a lot of those women probably had this intuition of like, oh, this is weird, or this guy is weird, or just a weird feeling, a bad feeling. But I'm going to assume that a lot of them probably overrode that feeling to be nice because they didn't want to seem like a mean person. They didn't want to seem like an asshole. They wanted to seem nice. And again, I'm not blaming these women like at all. It's 100% serial killer's fault for killing people. It's horrible. No victim of that is ever to blame for it at all, ever. It just goes to show that sometimes when we override, and we are putting ourselves in a place of like, oh, we don't want to offend a stranger. We just want to be nice. We end up being in a situation that can be quite not good. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind is if you have this choice between seeming nice or trusting your intuition, I would say always trust your intuition first and foremost. Who cares if you seem like a jerk? Maybe that person was a serial killer. Maybe they weren't. At the end of the day, you're still alive. You're in one piece. That's all that matters, at least to me, right? Who cares if the random person thinks you're a jerk? Like, as long as you went home that day, that's great. And let's just see. Oh my God, my cat. My cat was sleeping on the table and I guess she just had a nightmare. She just woke up and like went crazy. So that's what that was. Let's see. And Hallie and Hot Candy are both saying exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so Again, I don't blame those women, like, as women especially, we're taught to ignore those feelings that are coming up in our body, like, we're taught that intuition is just bullshit, we're just making it up, blah, 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 but at the end of the day, it's like, we're not. I think it's such a powerful resource that everyone of every gender has access to, no matter what body you were born with, we all have intuition. It's really, really powerful, and especially for women, I think it's a huge thing that we can all benefit from leaning into, right? It's just I just feel like it's really important. And Hallie, let's say you're saying you don't want to keep seeing guys you're not that into just because they're not crazy. Yeah, and if it's not a fit, if the vibe isn't growing, then by all means, like you don't need to continue to waste your time, like if that's what it feels like. And I think it's okay to like date a lot too. That's the other thing. Is like when we date a lot, we learn a lot. Like, I've dated a lot over the last few years, which does not mean sleeping around. I've been celibate for most of this year, actually. And we can learn a lot about people through going on a lot of dates. Like, we can learn about human nature, we can learn about ourselves, we can learn about these different sides of ourselves that being around different people brings out in us. And we can also learn that power of the feminine energy because I think so many women blame themselves for men acting badly. And when we embrace the feminine energy, when we put into practice, when we date a lot, when we go out a lot, we get to see that it's really, we didn't necessarily do anything wrong. We're just existing. And it's all in the other person based on how are they behaving in response to that, which is really, really interesting. Let's see. Hallie is asking, this is a very interesting and surprising question. Do I think long-term celibacy helps or hurts your femininity? I think that's a really good question. I think it's very circumstantial. I'm not being celibate for no reason. It's like I just want to do that at the moment because I'm not like with anybody, and I'm not someone who is into the like casual hookup situation. Because I think this is going to be maybe a spicy take, but I feel like a lot of women will have sex with people who don't deserve it. And so I feel like if I'm going to have sex with somebody, like I need to be able to know that I can call them at like 3 in the morning and they will be able to help me. Or if I broke my leg, that they would come to the hospital with me. Like if I don't trust that this person would come to the hospital with me and hold my hand if I broke my leg, that I am not going to sleep with them. That's just kind of how I feel. And so I feel like a lot of women are in their sexual vibe as a form of being in masculine energy because a lot of women have sex with men to keep them because they're afraid that if they don't have sex, then the guy will not be interested anymore. And I think that's probably true for a lot of cases. I think it's very unfortunate that that's kind of a state of the world. But I also think that like it can deplete our fucking energy to just be having sex with random ass people who don't give a fuck about us. And so I really think like, does this person care about me? Like that bar is not too high. It just isn't. Like that's kind of my opinion. I don't think that's too high of a bar. And I think it's a lot of internal work, it's a lot of self-reflection that I think a lot of women today don't wanna do of, like, why am I sleeping with someone who really doesn't seem to care about me very much? And, like, why is that normalized? Like, who benefits when that's normalized? That's kinda just my opinion. And, like I said in my podcast episode about this, I think I also did an episode recently about waiting around sex. I think that's a podcast episode from last week where I go into that in depth because like I've been there, like I've been that person who had my adventures when I was a lot younger, and I'm thankful I had that experience when I was young and I learned a lot, and that's cool, and I feel like very in touch with my body and very in touch with sexuality and very in touch with all of that. Like I'm not phased. I'm not a prude, I'm not any of that, but I just don't feel it needs to be shared with everybody, you know? Like especially people who I don't know, especially people who don't necessarily give a fuck about me. And so I think a lot of women try to use that as a way to like get a man to stick around, and maybe that works sometimes, but like that's just not my thing. Like I would rather do that with someone who I know I can trust to like help me out again if I like broke my bone. that I could call them and they wouldn't be like, "Why is this bitch calling me?" They'd be like, "I'll be right there at the hospital with you." Like, that's kind of my feeling is like, does the person care about me? And it's like, sex is so intimate and it's this like merging of energies, especially when we get older. Maybe less so when we're younger, I don't know. But it's such a merging of energies that I don't think it benefits women just to do that indiscriminately. And again, everyone can go do what they want. Like, that's cool. If that's working for you, then go for it. If you feel enriched by that, then like go for it. But it doesn't build closeness. And I think the way that a lot of women think it does. I think a lot of women think that that's the way to like build the emotional intimacy with men, but it isn't. It does not do that. That's going to be through other things. But that's just my opinion through what I've learned. And Hot Candy says, I'm exactly right to the point. So thank you. Yeah, it's a tough one. And I feel kind of like an outlier saying this. I feel like a lot of people listening are going to be like, oh my God, you're such a prude. You're so sex negative. And it's like, no, I'm not actually. This is just, I've come to really believe that it's a sacred thing. And why do that with someone who you don't have to be like married, but at least they should give a fuck about you. And they should like be the person that would bring you soup when you're sick. Like if they wouldn't do that, then why have sex? Like I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I think part of it is self-worth. Not to say that having sex degrades us. I don't think it does. It's not about that, but it's like, why would you even go for a drink with someone who doesn't care about you? Why would you, go for dinner with someone who doesn't care about you? Why would you have an hour-long phone conversation with someone who doesn't care about you? Sex is the same. Like, why share energy? Why share space with someone who doesn't care about you? And I think a lot of women, unfortunately, find out the hard way that people don't care. And so I think that's why this feminine energy thing that I'm talking about, waiting, listening to our bodies, having boundaries, all of that leads to a pretty drama-free life, to be honest. Like, I haven't had any love life drama in fucking forever because I like stay really intense about these boundaries that I've set for myself and thinking about it through that lens of feminine energy, right? Because if I was in my masculine energy, I would be like, doing stuff to please others, like doing stuff to cater to the men, but I don't. And so it's been very drama-free, which has honestly felt really good. Let's see. Hallie says, you have to be married before sex, so you haven't been married for like 7 years, so you're not so happily celibate. Oh, interesting. You have to be married before sex. So that's your own boundary? Or is that a cultural boundary? I guess it's kind of the same thing. You haven't been married. Were you married before? And Hot Candy is saying some women don't have boundaries. Yeah, it's true. But I think a lot of women not having boundaries is due to fear. It's due to a fear of being alone. And I think a fear of rejection. Like, I think a lot of women are afraid if they have boundaries, they're going to be rejected. They're afraid they're going to be rejected and abandoned and left. And so then they choose to have no boundaries because then at least they're with somebody. And so it's very interesting. Like, I feel like I can observe like what's happening. Hello, Kat. Hallie, you're saying you've been married 2 times to men you didn't really like and it didn't work out. Yeah. And so you know what? Like, for you moving forward, I'd be really curious to know like what your own dream relationship would look like for yourself in the future. If it was men you didn't really like. Like what would you really like? Like, what do you think would really light you up in that way? Oh, this all makes sense now, Hallie, why you were talking about that. So you're saying the crazy thing is even in those marriages you didn't have intimate satisfaction. So you hope all of this isn't blocking you when it comes to feminine. This is a really good point. So this is actually really interesting. So feminine energy is all about receiving, right? And so think about receiving in the body, right? How can we do that? Think of our senses, all the senses. Food, taste. So even spending like 3 hours at a luxurious restaurant, eating slowly, tasting every little bite slowly, going to a musical performance, not going on your phone at all, and just listening, close your eyes, listening, being really in your body, taking a bath with the bath salt and the bath oil and the bubbles and like the incense, just all the sensory experience. How can you lean into that sensory experience more? And I would say, in terms of the sexual, you can DIY. And so that's actually something I would recommend thinking about exploring the DIY. I'm writing a book right now on magical rituals at home. And one of the chapters is about sex magic. And I wrote a section about like DIY sex magic and what would that involve. And I ended up buying a few things. Let's just leave it at that to see. So I want to recommend it in the book, right? Because I don't want to recommend something that you guys can't buy. What I was going to recommend has been discontinued. So anyway, so like it is possible to lean into that and to make it a ritual for yourself. Do whatever you need to do to feel good and like explore and experiment, right? Because just because you're not with someone doesn't mean that you have to completely neglect whatever that is for you. And some people are going to have a really high drive around that. Some people it's going to be a bit lower, a bit more chill, you know? Like it's still possible to experiment and get to know your body and all of that stuff, even if you're doing that by yourself. Like that totally is reasonable. And I think a lot of women feel shame when they do that or just like embarrassed, but like men never feel embarrassed when they do that. So that's interesting. I've never heard of that in my life. And so that's something that's interesting too, right? It's like really leaning into like, yeah, I'm worthy of this. Yeah, I want to make myself feel good. Why not? Let's see. Hallie's saying the crazy thing is when it comes to self-massage, you just want to hurry up and get it over with. Yeah, but I'm opening your mind right now. Good. I like that. And you know what's actually so interesting is like some of those like self-massage tools are like intense. And it's so interesting because the new ones that I got, they're so like intense that it's like over in 2 seconds, whereas the old ones that I wanted to recommend to you guys, but it's been discontinued, I got them like promotionally as influencer a few years ago, and it's like my favorite because it's so slow. It's like a slow burn. It's slow. It takes forever, and that's awesome. And so I think that might be something to really consider too as you're exploring that. It's like, and I think you're so right that there is that tendency to just like get it done. But like just like the example I gave of eating a nice slow meal at the restaurant, being slow, sipping the wine slowly, really engaging all the senses, engaging the whole body, giving your whole body the permission to just like, feel it with all the senses that you can, to incorporate that into that kind of solo DIY type of situation. That's just expanding your capacity to receive. And then when you are in a situation with someone in the future, then you'll be even more confident about explaining what you like and knowing your own body. So I think it's like, if you feel like you want to explore that, then why not? You don't need to wait for someone to do that. And I think a lot of women forget that too, right? It's like they think that there's this shame around the DIY. And so they get into these connections with men to scratch that itch, so to speak, but then it depletes their soul. It depletes like their self-confidence because they get rejected, treated like crap after such an intimate experience. Then they feel horrible. As I've seen a million times. That was me well, ages ago, back when I was in that masculine energy space. But again, the feminine energy is all about, and it's interesting because back when I was in my masculine energy, I never did any DIY stuff like that ever, ever. So it's very interesting to notice that. Whereas now I do, and I'm also celibate at the moment because I'm not with anybody. And so I think part of it is just as women, as people in a feminine energy space, and I think it is mostly women who have the hardest time accessing this these days, but giving ourselves the permission to really feel, be embodied, to decide that we're worthy of feeling good rather than denying ourselves that, but also having the foresight and the restraint and the self-control to do that in a way that is emotionally safe and also protects our bodies. And I also say this as I think I shared this on Instagram a few days ago, but over the pandemic, I had a cervical precancer scare, and it's all cleared now. Yay, all gone. But that scared the ever-loving shit out of me, and, I'm really glad I'm in a good place with that now. But it's like, if you think about it as a woman, it's like every time you do and I had a conversation with my doctor about this. I was like, "Am I good?" She's like, "Yep, you're all clear, you're all good." But the whole cycle starts again if you have another sexual partner. You gotta be even more aware of this. Again, this could happen again. I'm like, "Fuck." So that's kind of a big part of my process with that too is like, would someone hold my hand at the hospital? If no, then guess what? There's no sex happening anytime soon. you know, it's like us as women, we do have that additional risk in a physical body type of way because of our anatomy. It's all internal. And so we are at a lot higher risk for certain health stuff, right? And so that is something that I am also really aware of and why I'm like no longer interested in any casual physical connections in that way. It's just like does not interest me in any way. It's not worth the risk. Those biopsies hurt like a motherfucker. And I'm sure y'all have probably been through similar. It's not an uncommon thing. And yet it's something that women have to go through that's often just glossed over as like irrelevant in this whole conversation, but I don't think it is. And so, how is this related to feminine energy? Well, again, it's just rooted in, what feels good in your body. What are those boundaries? And staying true to that and not abandoning ourselves with whatever our own specific desires are and our own specific comforts are. And I think the more women are comfortable and able to and, intense in our boundaries and we stand true to our boundaries, we don't betray our own boundaries in order to please someone else, specifically to please a man, especially. Fuck that. The more that we do that, I think the more the standards are going to raise for us all as a society. That's just kind of my opinion. Unfortunately, the standards are in hell these days for straight dating. Maybe some of my lesbian and gay folks can let me know how that's going for y'all on that side of things. And I am queer, but I pretty much just date men these days. That's kind of more my vibe because I like that gender polarity. It's kind of my preference. But I think a lot of the time the standards are in hell right now because a lot of women's standards are also in hell. It's like a lot of women betray our boundaries. We have poor self-esteem. We don't stand up for ourselves. We are afraid to walk away because we'd rather be with someone shitty than be alone and yet staying with our boundaries. And so I know I've been talking a lot about dating and like men and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like a lot of this feminine energy stuff, like I was talking about at the way beginning of this live, it's very much internal. It's about your internal transformation of your own energy, your own being, right? And when we do this feminine energy work, our whole vibration changes and it is a form of existing. You don't have to consciously do it anymore. It's just kind of second nature. It's just how you are. And it's definitely a process, but I will say it's like way better over here. Because it's just, I feel like so much more in a space of trust. Trusting myself, trusting other people. I feel strong that I can keep my boundaries as they are and not be persuaded one way or the other to betray my boundaries. And I've been in situations where I have had the opportunity to express my boundary. And I did. And so it's also nice, right, to be in those situations where you can prove to yourself, yes, I can stay true to my boundary. So then we can build that confidence that no, the world is not going to end, and maybe that connection is ending, but it's good to not abandon ourselves. And that can change our whole vibration. And a lot of it is, we can relate it to the witchcraft and magic thing, because it is all about our body as that anchor, as that barometer for a lot of things, right? What feels good, what doesn't. There's a few more y'all watching now. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts, feelings? I've already been going for like an hour and 20 minutes. Time flies. But it's interesting to talk about this stuff more, as I feel like it is so misunderstood, but I feel like it is the missing piece for so many people, as I know it was for me. And I don't want to make it seem like it's all just about dating, because it's not. It's about everything. Like, it's just about your own self as a sovereign being, having the confidence and self-worth to lean into that. And that's part of it. It's really interesting. There's like a reinvigorated presence to it. Like I say in my first book, Witch Body. Yeah. It's fun to talk about this stuff with you guys. And if you guys don't know, my Feminine Energy Without Bullshit course is launching now, which is why I'm doing this live, to kind of talk about my journey and the transformations that I've experienced and kind of what my perspective is. Most of my audience is like witchcraft and magic people, and probably a lot of people who are like, what the fuck? Feminine energy? What? And probably are a little bit like maybe turned off by the idea of feminine energy, or just confused by it or whatever. So I really wanted to come on and do a live. Oh, I miss my Americans. You wish I was in the States. So the course is online, actually. So it's going to be videos and then group coaching calls, like on Zoom. So we already have a small group, but I want some more folks to join up, because I think this is going to be really fun. And this is the only time I'm doing the live group coaching component as included. Let's see. When you come here, your other name is Too Hot. Okay, cool. Of course, I'll remember that. Who else would that be? Man, I miss the States. I haven't been back since before the pandemic. I was in New York. And man, yeah, I was in New York right before the pandemic hit. It was like February 2020. And then I got back. And then like a few weeks later, it was like a lockdown here anyway. It was insane. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of one-on-one group, not one-on-one group coaching. No, I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching with folks on feminine energy. And so I'm really excited to do the group coaching component with this course. English Witch in France. You're new to the channel, so playing catch up, but you love the content so far. Oh, thank you. And I love that little emoji. It looks like a Pikachu with a heart on it with like a Wi-Fi symbol. I love that. Thank you. English Witch in France. How are you liking France? Where in France are you? And where in England are you from? Half my background is actually English, weirdly, and the other half is actually French, believe it or not. So that's really cool. I don't speak a word of French. I definitely used to, but now I do not, from growing up in America and just kind of forgetting it. But when I was a teeny child, I did speak some French, but it's a very fucking hard language, I think. Well, welcome. Welcome to the channel. I'm also new to YouTube, so yeah, I'm new to YouTube, so it's nice to be here. I'm really enjoying it. I've always been an Instagram person, but since Instagram killed the long form videos, like you can't do long videos on Instagram anymore, I was like, I hate this. I'm not a TikTok person. I'm not like a sound bites person. I'm much more of like a long form, let's go deep type of person. And so I feel like YouTube was more the fit for me. Let's see. Oh, Hot Kinder, are you following me on Instagram? My Instagram is Sabrina M. Scott. I'm just going to put it to the chat just for everyone else. Yeah, Instagram was my first love, but I really am enjoying YouTube. I love how organized it is, and the community actually seems really nice. And let's see, English, which in France is saying you're from London and you live in the, I'm not even going to pronounce that properly, the mountains. That's awesome. That is so fun. Yeah, if anyone has any questions about feminine energy stuff, let me know. I can answer them or just speak to that. Or if anyone has any challenges about any of this stuff or just confusions or whatever, because I do realize this topic is probably going to be new to like a lot of folks on this space, or like people have been familiar with my work in the past. I've never really talked about gendered energy publicly until last year, even though I started my journey with it, I guess, in 2017, 2018. And so I think a lot of it is just worthiness, and being unafraid of the endings of things that don't suit you. But what else do I want to say before we go? So Feminine Energy course without bullshit. Feminine Energy without bullshit is the course, online course, group coaching program. So it's going to be videos and then some live group coaching calls for the next 6 months, which I'm really excited about because I'm excited for the group coaching because I've only done the one-on-one coaching with people. And it's been so awesome. And I know that this stuff is very like intimate and tough for people. And it's like embarrassing, or I feel like it's very private for a lot of people. And so I'm excited to do the group component because I feel like when we're in a group, it will really help people stay accountable and also realize they're not alone. Because sometimes the thing that you're afraid to say is like that you're experiencing is like the thing that literally everyone there is also working through. So I think that's important. Let's see. Oh, Hot Candy, you just followed me. Okay, sweet. Well, my cat knocked over my phone, so I'll check that as soon as the live is over, and I will say hi. And let's see. Hallie is saying, do you have any advice for creating and sticking to feminine habits and routines? You tend to stick things for a few weeks and then fall off. That's actually a really interesting question. So this is actually part of why I'm doing. Hello, it was. This is part of why I'm doing the group coaching. Actually, is because it's going to be 6 months. 6 months where we have a group chat and then meet 12 times. And so that is actually, I think, a really important thing for that accountability to be able to stick with something and show up. Yeah, it's a long-term course. So 6 months, 12 calls, and then the main course content is going to be, so there's kind of two parts to it. So the first part is there's going to be like 20 hours of videos that I'm recording, which is like the content, like the teachings. So that's worksheets, teachings, videos that you can watch whenever the hell you want. And then the other part is going to be the group part, and both of them are combined. This is the only time I'm offering it where they're both included for everybody. And so part of the reason for the long-term thing, like why it's not a 3-week course, is because for this exact reason that you mentioned, is like a lot of people, like you said, they stick to things for a few weeks. Like they have the best of intentions, like New Year's resolutions, feel the best of intentions, and then they just kind of disappear and they forget. And this is the other reason why it's a course for 6 months. And the other reason why it costs money is because, first of all, to pay for my time and my expertise. But the other part is when we actually pay money in something, it's because we're invested in it. All of the times that I've prepaid for like a yoga membership, that's been the only time that I've actually gone to fucking yoga class, is when I was like, oh shit, I have this membership. It expires in 6 months. I guess I am going to yoga every day for 6 months because I want to get the most out of it. Because when we have something on the line, we're more likely to take action and actually get the results that we want. So there's some like accountability. We got some skin in the game. Because if I just did a free course on this, like I guarantee like no one would finish it and no one would show up. Not because the content isn't good, it would be good, but it's so easy to just get distracted, especially when the material, it's like something really challenging that we have to change in ourselves, right? It's like going to the gym. I fucking don't like the gym. I don't want to go to the gym. Literally, I don't want to. The only time I've ever been able to keep that habit is when I've prepaid for like a set time. Then I go religiously because I've got some skin in the game and I'm committed. And so I feel it's the same kind of thing with this, interestingly. And having it be for a longer period of time is to keep people accountable. And also to have me steer people if anyone gets off the wagon or is having a challenge or just wants to be able to apply it to their life in a way that is specific, like the questions that you asked around the cultural piece around like the no sex till marriage thing. That's a very specific kind of cultural piece that probably not everyone is going to have. And so having that specialized like response and feedback can also help keep you like doing everything in a way that feels good and is fucking relevant to you, because what's relevant to you is not going to be relevant to everybody, and vice versa, right? And so that's a part of it. What else did I want to say about this? And so your question too, right, about feminine energy habits. This is a funny one. So I'll give you one thing to think about. And this might not be everyone's cup of tea, but first of all, I would say the course is going to be really helpful for you. If you've got any questions about it, let me know. The curriculum is on the link that I posted way up above. You can also message me in some kind of which way, and I will hook you up. And I'll also put the URL in this video description as well as soon as I'm done. But one thing, and when I'm with my friends, I always have to catch myself. So if I was going to give you a homework, it would be try not to open any doors for yourself in public over the next week. And I was recently hanging out with a friend and her husband, and it took me like a while to realize I was doing it, but I just kept stepping to the side and not opening any doors because I'm so used to it. Because like a lot of my socializing is dating. Like I do see friends, but it's like a lot of my socializing is more like that type of thing. Because like right now I'm dating for something serious. Like I'm kind of like on the prize. Like this is what I want to be doing. And I would always just kind of like step to the side, and then my friend would open the door. And it took me like I was like, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I'm so in the habit now of like letting men open doors for me. Like, obviously, if you need to, like, go into the bank and there's no one around, like, go into the bank, it's fine. But I've noticed that when we are practicing feminine energy, we practice receiving, we practice allowing people to help us, you know? So maybe if your impulse, I don't know if this is true, but I know there's some women for whom their impulse is to be like, no, I can open my own door. Or like a guy tries to open the door and then they're like, take the door, and like then they go through. So I would say fight those impulses. And if you are exiting or entering the same time as somebody, just like step back. And now my body language, I just do it. Like I don't even think about it. It's like programmed in my being. I'm like, I programmed myself because now I'm not even thinking about it. I'm not even doing it consciously. And this is the difference between feminine energy and masculine energy. The masculine energy is when we are doing this, right? That's the homework. The homework is you have to be consciously doing it because you're not used to it yet. So you're going to be in a doing. So the not doing will be a form of doing because you haven't embodied it yet. But because I've trained myself past that point, now I'm at this space of embodying it where I don't even think about it. It just kind of is how it goes. It just is. And that's been really kind of fun, right? Because it gives other people, especially men out in the world, you don't ever have to see them again. You don't have to give them your number. Nothing weird has to be going on. And, even today I was at the grocery store before. And I guess, I don't know, there's something about my energy, I suppose, with this whole feminine energy thing, but it's like random men were just like, making the way for me to go by and opening the door and getting the cart for me and like, asking if I needed anything. And it's like not even people, this like old ass people, it's like, it's not all young people who want my number. There was actually none of that today. It's just allowing them the space to be operating in that gentleman, healthy, masculine space. And so this is why I'm saying it's about being, it's about vibration, it's about your energy, and it's about creating the space where it's like there's an opening for that polarity to kind of, that dance to happen. Again, even if it's for no reason. It's like none of those old dudes asked me out. It's fine. That's not what it was about at all. It was just about that dance of energy. And when we are operating in this way where that feminine energy is our default and we kind of have this energetic difference, this kind of expectation in a way. But it's weird because the expectation for me, it's not even cerebral. It's not happening on an intellectual level. It's just an energetic, this is the vibe. And it's like, would I have, if those guys didn't make way for me to pass them or go first, like, would my life have ended? No. Would I have even really probably noticed? Like, probably not. I was in no real rush. It was more just about noticing that interplay of energy and how they respond to my energy. Right. And so being in that feminine energy space, again, it reveals more of who people are. And so then those guys revealed themselves to be in the more healthy space because they were happy to, yield to my feminine energy. Right. And so it's just something to notice, pay attention to, play with it, see how it feels. And if it feels incredibly uncomfortable, like, then you're probably operating in your masculine energy a lot of the time. And so that's something to like observe about yourself, just like check it out, think about it. And I'm going to put the URL for the course again in the chat. I'm sure there's a more official way to do that, but there we go. There it is. You can see the whole curriculum. I'll probably do another YouTube live and talk about their curriculum sometime over the next week. I think I'm closing enrollment November 22nd in the evening. So yeah, and the reason I'm sharing all this stuff is it's honestly been very life-changing for me, especially as a trauma survivor and all of that, to realize that despite the trauma, despite feeling like the world is an inherently unsafe place for a very long time, to realize that I can find that safety within myself, and actually the world can be a safe and giving place. And so for me, that's been very healing. And it's enabled me to see the world in a very optimistic and positive way, being open to others in a way that I definitely wasn't when I was more in my traumatized state of mind, which was a more masculine energy space because I needed to be to like protect myself, right? Or that's what I thought. And so when we are experiencing trauma or something really unpleasant, it's very common for us to kind of overcompensate with that masculine energy to keep ourselves safe. So that's something to think about. Yay. Thank you for keeping me company, Hallie, and Hot Candy, if you're still here. And English Witch in France, if you're still here. It's nice to have people here. Oh, I'm like really enjoying YouTube, you guys. It was really fun. Like, it's a lot more friendly than I thought it would be. I thought YouTube was going to be like kind of scary, and maybe it will get scary when I'm bigger on here, but like, I really love that people really have these communities on YouTube that I didn't really realize. Like, it does feel very different from Instagram in a really interesting way. So I'm kind of curious to see what directions this all goes in. But does anyone have any other questions before I log off? And I don't know what I'm going to be doing next, but before I do something else. Questions, thoughts, feelings? I do appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. It's been really fun. And I'm glad that this is a topic that people are interested in and are open to what I have to say about it. Because I know that a lot of what I'm saying is it's maybe not stuff that everyone like really would agree with in today's world. So that's that. Yeah. So thanks, you guys. What a fun live. No more questions, thoughts, feelings, vibes. It seems like not. I can't believe the sun is already like kind of setting here. It's like almost 4 p.m. Eastern time. And it's like already getting dark. Like I love all seasons. I really do. But the pitch black at 5 p.m. vibe, which we're having in Toronto, is like not my favorite. I'll say that. Okay, friends, are there any more questions about any of that? Let's see. Allie saying, it's so weird for the first weeks of this time of year. Yeah, it really is. Like, I miss when it was dark at 9. That's the time it should be dark. 9, not 3:40. It's like it's a bit much. And Hallie, where are you based out of? Where do you live, if you don't mind sharing? Are you in Eastern time as well? Or whereabouts are you? You're in New York. Awesome. That's so cool. I like New York, honestly. I love America in general. I actually co-organize an Americans meetup here in the city. So yeah, it's a vibe. It's a vibe. I love y'all. Most of my clients are actually American. So yeah, I feel very culturally American, even though I was born in Canada, but I was raised in the States. So there's that. Okay, friends. Well, it looks like there's no more questions. Oh, you're new to my content. Oh, welcome. You found me the other day through Alamoon513. I don't even know who that is. What, did they share something of mine on here or somewhere else? Well, thank you for being new. I appreciate you guys. Awesome. Oh, what did they share? Now I'm curious. And did they share it on here? I'm asking too many questions, but I think I'm always just curious how people find me. Oh my God. That must have been with Tarot Shrink. That was a really fun conversation. Yeah, I really loved that. That was great. Well, tell your friend or Alamoon my gratitude and appreciation. Yeah, Tarot Shrink is awesome. I've known her for a while on the internet, and she's so cool. She's super cool. Like great vibe, great energy. Yeah, I love it. And actually, yeah, in that interview, oh, thank you. Yay. Yeah, that interview, I think we actually talked a little bit about feminine energy on the video with Tarot Shrink. I think that's actually mostly what she wanted to talk to me about. I think I just kind of like meandered to talk about a lot of different stuff. But yeah, we did for sure talk about feminine energy stuff. So if you haven't watched that conversation, it's really fun. It's really, really fun. Yeah, it's a fun topic. No, I love that. Now I'm playing. Okay, I'm gonna go watch that or listen to it later on today. And I love all those emojis. Those are like my favorite emojis. Thank you for letting me know, because I'm always so curious how people find out about me or, find out about the channel. And I'm actually always surprised that YouTube, it seems like really good for people discovering new creators, which is really, really cool. Like, I feel like I've found so many interesting creators on here too that I don't know how I would have found out if it wasn't for the YouTube algorithm. And I feel like I've been listening to YouTube music for like literally forever. And so YouTube always recommends me like the best music because I've just been on their algorithm for like a bazillion years. So I feel like they're doing something right with the algorithm. And there's something cool about like the magical serendipity of that. So thank you so much for joining me today, Hallie. It's been really cool to get to know you and everyone else who has been on today. I appreciate you guys. I think this is my longest YouTube live I've ever done so far. There's some people I've followed who've done like 5-hour lives. And at first I was like, I don't know how people can do that. That's like kind of a long time. But this actually has really flown by. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go do some stuff because the sun is setting and I want to take advantage of the light before it's like Totally dark. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I really appreciate you guys. I'm going to put the link to my feminine energy course and all of my other links and things in the description of this video. If anyone's got any questions about anything, feel free to reach out. Much love, much appreciation to all of you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.